Bellefontaine, and you're listening to the HomeBuyer's Hour on WCPT AM 820, where the facts matter. And today we're going to be talking about where the market is, where it's going, and how do you know when you got a legitimate loan offer or not. So in the studio with me, I have Patrick Loftus. Patrick, if you don't mind, introduce yourself, please.
Good morning. Hey.
Yeah, that's time to wake you up.
Patrick Loftus. I am a real estate lawyer. It's important that I add real estate before lawyer because that's what I do. And when people do more than one thing, that means they have to try to be experts in more than one thing. That's hard. And instead, I try to be really, really dialed in on real estate. And I find that focus is something that suits me and it suits my clients. You want to get in touch with me? I'm getting more and more of a reputation for being someone who is active on social media. So find me on Instagram, Loftus_law. And Loftus, the way it sounds, you go, yeah, that seems simple. It's not, apparently.
Nothing ever is.
The way you spell it, LOF as in Frank, T as in Tom, US as in Sam, _law. That's Instagram. Find me on TikTok as well. Loftus Law, at Loftus Law. No underscore on that one, just to keep it simple.
I love it.
Oh, and email me at show@thehomebuyer'shour.com.
I love it. Show@thehomebuyer'shour.com, and you can get hold of either one of the three of us. And then if you have a question for the real estate guest, we'll always forward it on to them. Speaking of which, Dennis, I asked you how to pronounce your last name, and I already forgot. Isn't that awesome? If you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. And actually, I hit a corrected spelling, and this is probably something that happens to you all the time. I typed in your last name, and then autocorrect took over, and it said Heck, H-E-C-K.
There you go.
And I look at this thing, I'm like, eyes open, and I had to go ahead and fix it. But Dennis, please, introduce yourself. Tell us about your company, your team, and say hello to somebody special, please.
Good morning, Dylan Maureen H., my daughter, who is just calling me right now. So hopefully she is off to pre-algebra. My name is Dennis Huyck, and we're going to take the eighth caller that can actually pronounce it correctly, and you win a prize. So actually, it's Dennis Huyck. I'm with Keller Williams 1 Chicago. Been a real estate broker for 20 years here in Chicago, and feel very blessed and grateful to be on the show. It's the first time for me, so excited to be here.
And we're going to get back to Dennis. He's going to help us understand where the market is and where it's going. But beforehand, let's talk some finance stuff with Joey Mathews. Joey, if you don't mind.
Can I interrupt just a moment?
Please.
Because I'm not sure I got a phone number or an email address if I want to reach Dennis.
Oh, very good. Dennis, how do they get hold of you?
Thank you, Patrick. My email is dhuyck@kw.com. Phone number 312-420-1593. And I would just like to finish that off with, when you are buying or selling real estate, please use a real estate attorney. Real estate attorney.
This guy knows what he's talking about.
Listen to that. All right, Joey, give us a rundown. Who are you and why do I like you so much?
Buddy the Elf, what's your favorite color? Joey Mathews, the VA loan nerd. I am a VA loan nerd. I do all the loans, but I'm a veteran myself, and I have come to find that there is a major education gap regarding the VA loans. So I am trying to help fill that gap. You can find me at thevaloannerd.com. You can hit me up on social media as @thevaloannerd. You could call or text me at 630-235-2405. You can also email me at show@thebuyer'shour.com. Oh, my NMLS is 1330694. That's important. The Home Buyer's Hour
is important. What's that number?
1330694. It's so important. I try to say it as fast as possible.
I hate
so
those
what's
laws
going
that
on?
say you have to do that. Yeah, tell me what's going on in the mortgage world.
Yeah, so what's going on in mortgage world is I know that obviously people listen on Saturday and the inflation data came back on Wednesday last week, but it came back at a 3%, a percentage point less than the previous month. Market's been pretty flat this week. The next big thing will be when the Fed raises rates next week, about a quarter, and really what's going to be the most important piece of that meeting is when the minutes get released and we see what they talked about and what their idea is regarding future increases, right? So far, the market's facing in 2 expected increases through the end of the year, but we will see what they actually talk about and what they actually plan to do. On my end, I'm starting to wonder if we see. You know what? I'm not going to get into it because Joey Stradamus is always wrong.
Get into it.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
They're always wrong. The rest of the world is wrong.
I mean, with how fast inflation is falling right now, month to month, and jobs is just skyrocketing. Like it has all the warning signs of a bigger recession than what they're talking about with the soft landing. So I don't know. I'm not an economist. It's just what I see.
But isn't it normal though? When the faster you correct something, it's like steering a boat. The faster you make that turn, you're going to oversteer.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of what I think we're going to end up seeing. If they raise again, I think we may see a period of deflation, and which is great for the rate markets, but it's terrible for the economy.
Yeah, deflation is. I mean, people complain about inflation. If you see deflation start to happen, boy, just look. If you, rather than me try to explain that, because I'll explain it wrong probably, just Google what happened with Google what has happened with Japan's economy over the past 20 years, and take 10 minutes. You'll have a pretty clear idea of why deflation is so bad.
But isn't it somewhat normal, guys? I mean, and all three of you, please jump in on this. We're going to go through inflation, and we're going to go through recessions. We're going to go up. We're going to go down. It's a roller coaster ride. At least 30 years that I've been doing this, it has been.
That's true, but when you talk about deflation is prices going down. And all right, fine, I'll explain it. When prices go down over time, then people hoard money because you go, look, if that TV costs $1,000 today, it's going to cost $995 tomorrow. Whatever, you can just keep extrapolating on, and that really freezes up economic movement. And as much as you hate to see inflation, at least with inflation, with very high inflation, the incentive is to just get it and spend it as quickly as you can if you can't change your money out into a more stable currency. With deflation, you're just not going to spend any money. You're going to see the value of your money increase. Why spend it?
Well, how do you see this, Dennis? I mean, I look at it as like FOMO. When I see those interest rates going up, I know our company gets much, much busier. When I see the rates start dropping, we actually slow down. I think people are waiting for more. How do you see it?
That's interesting. I feel like with all this change in the economy, folks are still needing to move. And I feel like there's this pent-up demand. I feel like there are people that are maybe see some economical concern and issues coming around the corner, but unlike the last market crash, they got a lot of money built up, a lot of equity in their houses, so they're going to need to tap into that, and they're going to start moving.
Being homeowners.
Being homeowners,
okay.
Yes. So as far as the real estate market goes, I think, like you guys were talking about before we came on here, it's going to get crazy, and it's going to be for different reasons.
Okay, you can't. I'm sorry. I got to throw the malarkey flag at that one. That is not swearing.
What a bunch of hullabaloo!
I know. Give me. You can't just say that. Give me more details. What do you mean by
the
that?
Malarkey flag?
I don't know. We're gonna call it yellow.
All right.
Well, we know that inventory has not supported the housing demand.
Okay.
Right.
That's why it's such a seller's market.
That's why it's such a seller's market.
All right.
But that demand is not gone away. It's just being built up.
Gotcha.
So I feel like that dam will break, and it's going to be for different reasons for different folks, whether it's downsizing that they waited because of the interest rate, or whether it's because they have equity built into their homes that, due to, needing to get into that money. I did say doo-doo.
You did say doo-doo. I was going to call you on it, but you called yourself.
I said I wouldn't curse on this air.
You've got a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old.
And they're giggling.
It's not the last time that someone will make fun of you for saying doo-doo.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So, anyway, I just think there's going to be a lot of things happening for many different reasons for different folks, and it's coming around the corner. So
yeah, and I'm going to add on to that with rent prices and everything else going up. home ownership to me seems like a no-brainer. All right, it doesn't take much money to get a mortgage. And Joey, correct me if I'm wrong. I know that if you were in the military for enough time and you can qualify for a VA mortgage, you can get those at 0. I think FHA is 3%, and I hear a lot of 10% and 20% mortgages.
You're speaking about down payment, right?
Why is this fun for you, young man?
Well, no, it's because I get to play the game, right? So yeah, on a VA loan or USDA loan, you can put nothing down, right? That does not mean you can't put there's going to be no costs involved. There's these things called closing costs that exist.
Right.
I run into that all the time. I thought this was a zero down program. I'm like, yeah, it is. That doesn't mean zero costs, right? The FHA 3.5% down conventional allows for 3% down. If you're a first-time home buyer, regardless of income, or if you are a move-on borrower or buyer or a secondary buyer or a first-time buyer and you meet some income thresholds set by Fannie and Freddie Mac, it's 80% of the average median income. In this area, it comes out to 80. Yeah, so in this area, it comes out to 84,000. When I say this area, I mean Cook County, Chicagoland area, and the surrounding collar counties. But 84,000. If you make more than that, then you can't use it. It is a home possible or home ready mortgage where you also get rate incentives, mortgage insurance incentives, blah, blah, blah. But you can still put 3% down. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of misinformation. And it's crazy to me still that people are like, oh, I don't have the 20% to put down. I don't have the 20. Like, how do people still think this? Will you stop talking to your dad about the mortgage you got in 1967? Yeah, there's plenty of programs. What's nice about FHA and VA is if you are... And if you have the idea that you might like to be a landlord, is you could put nothing down on VA. You could buy a 5-unit with 4 residential units plus 1 commercial unit there, as long as you're not using the commercial unit for value. Which, I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose, but it's a little nuance of VA a lot of people don't know about. Or with FHA, you could buy a 4-unit, 3.5% down. There are some little tricks that you have to talk about when you're doing that. There's a self-sufficiency test when you have to pass with FHA. It's a little bit harder to pass right now on 3 to 4 units, but you can still buy a 2-unit and not have to worry about it. There's so much crap I just talked about. I'm so sorry.
Joey,
I go on tangents. Let's do it.
Run.
I have something I need to discuss with you. So
yes.
Look, we and I were having a conversation yesterday over text and email about... Well, you mentioned closing costs, but I have a client that is currently shopping for a loan, and she was a bit perplexed as how to evaluate the estimates that she was getting. And I had sent them over to you, and you sort of, I suppose, non-intuitively suggested the loan that was at a higher interest rate and a higher cash needed at closing. And I could sort of see where you were coming from, but from the perspective of a consumer, they're not going to be able to evaluate it the same way you or I would. I mean, shoot, I spent a half hour on it, and I felt maybe I understood it 20%. You spent 60 seconds on it, and you were like, "Yep, this is what it is." I'm I'm circling around the questions I want to ask. Number one, how the heck is a consumer supposed to evaluate such things when they're presented with what is being, I think, more or less characterized as an apples-to-apples comparison? I mean, they're going to go with lower rate, lower cash to close. And there's some details there that maybe you want to flesh out. So that's question number one. And then question number two is I was under the impression that when you are given a loan estimate, something that I would characterize as a good faith estimate, that locks the lender in to some extent. And it sounded to me through our conversation that I was misinformed about that. Can you maybe get into some detail as far as some of the questions that I'm bringing up?
Well, I certainly can. And for what it's worth, we're going to update your vocabulary. You don't need to worry about saying GFE anymore. That word died. The good faith estimate, the GFE, died on October 3rd of 2015 when TRID was born. And that became GFEs and HUDs became LEs and CDs, loan estimates and closing disclosures, right? So the Tiller-RESPA Integrated Disclosure Act, effective October 3rd of 2015, that's when these new words came about, right? Okay, so the loan estimate, it's a great thing to get a loan estimate, right? However, what I was seeing on that loan estimate was $11,000 in charges and origination and discount to get this rate that they were at. What caught my eye as well was that it was not a locked loan estimate. What I mean by that is they had not locked the rate on there, right? So there was a $5,500 lender credit showing on there, which makes no sense. If you're going to charge $10,000, $11,000 in discount and origination, why would you throw a $5,500 lender credit on there when you could have just shown $5,500 in origination discount up front? Because all these numbers are affecting the lender's back end margin. That's all that matters right here, right? Now, because it's not locked, none of those numbers from the lender are actually anywhere near set in stone. So I feel like the one from, I'm going to say a random name here, Rocket Mortgage, that I saw, it was,
never heard of them. Yeah.
I would argue that was misleading at best, because it was not locked. They're showing this random $5,500 credit when they're also charging $11K. Just show the $5,500 in your origination in your Section A. It makes no sense, right? So when I look at the other loan estimate, I saw significantly less cost. The rate was a little bit higher, but if they wanted to charge the additional to get the rate to that lower number, I mean, yeah, go for it all day.
It's almost like I'm going to double the price so I could give you a 50% off coupon.
Yeah, it's goofy. And I know that there's another large bank from the country of America that does this as well. But anyway,
Italy,
so
I think that's where they started out at. So, but you know what? Before you go on to that, I want to actually hear a little more. I want to hear about Dennis on that same subject. You know, because I see real estate brokers as the central hub to the whole real estate process. You built a relationship with the client. They look to you for guidance, and they look to you for education. When stuff like this happens, how's that conversation go with the client?
Yep. Well, as you can tell from my radio skills, maybe I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but the most important thing that I do is I surround myself with experts and folks that I trust, and it's been the key to my 20 years in business. And to not have a trusted lender right up front kind of explaining to you the cost, explaining to you the whole process of what it's going to take to get a loan really hampers my ability to set expectations on what they can afford. So
that's a big deal.
How
do you know what to show them? You know, whether it's a $400,000 home, but they want to move into $1 million home.
You got it. And you know, most people have, you know, one set of expectations on what they see their home to be, and then we kind of break it down into, you know, what's going to be a good buy for them within realm of what they can afford, still have a good life, and to go running around the city without knowing that, you know, folks have made that mistake, and folks end up not buying a place because they've had bad expectations. So,
and I think a lot of real estate agents too, if they start showing people around, then they get a real bad taste for this business, and that's part of the reason why they have, you know, they have a very short lifespan. You know, 80% of our real estate brokers have a 2-year lifespan in the business before they got to go find another job.
That's right.
I'm not done with Joey.
Uh-oh.
All right, so let's get back.
So it wasn't locked. I was dancing around the lock.
Yeah,
so when you see a loan estimate that actually reflects a lock, so in the top right corner there's a little check mark that says yes it's locked or no it's locked, right? And it'll show you the lock through date, right? Because locks expire; they're on a set timeline. The thing about a locked loan estimate is now that rate is locked. Now that lender credit that they're showing is locked. If it's not locked, that lender credit really doesn't mean a whole bag of beans, right? Because when you lock a loan estimate, you are locking a rate sheet for that pricing for that lock period on that day, right? So you can still move up and down on rate, but your margins are going to be affected. So if that rate moves from a 5.875 to a 6.5, now that lender will be able to charge less origination and probably give you a solid credit, right, towards closing, because now you have the margin to do so. If that rate went down, if it was locked at the 5.875 and the rate went down, right, now you can charge more, but you're still locking based off of that day's rate sheet, that specific period, and time. It's time stamped, right? So until there's a lock on there, and this is why things get misleading with certain companies, is they'll show you all these great things, but if that lock checkbox is not checked, it doesn't mean a doggone thing.
Joey, are you locking these rates in before folks are going under contract?
You have the ability to, right? I mean, in this market, I don't really think it's totally necessary. I am generally locking as soon as I get a contract, right? And if rates go down, like, hey, that's, it is what it is. Like, I have the ability to potentially renegotiate based on how much the market improves. But if they go up, hey, you're protected. I like to lock as soon as I get a contract. Locking prior to contract, a lot of places will offer 90 days on a lock prior to contract to shop around, but you're also looking at 90-day lock periods. You're usually going to get charged a point or two to get that done, and you have to pay it up front. I don't always know that's the greatest thing, because let's say that you're shopping, it's 3 months, you're 3 months in, now you're expired. You just paid, 1% of whatever your loan amount would be to lock in this rate that doesn't even matter anymore.
You got to pay that 1% up front?
You have to pay it up front. Yep, they're going to collect that up front.
Well, that's not fun.
That is not fun, and it really puts a lot more pressure on the buyer to potentially buy something they don't actually want. But it's a tool a lot of places use. Oh, lock and shop. I think it's a terrible idea. I don't think it's in the best interest of the buyer. Plenty of people use it. Hey, God bless you. Not my cup of tea.
So if I'm talking to a consumer, so I don't often get involved in this. My client asked a question, and I had some curiosity about it. So and I said, look, send me these two estimates, because she was perplexed. And I was like, well, surely as someone who has been handling real estate transactions for the past 20 years, I should be able to look at both of these and kind of suss out which is the better deal. And I arrived at the conclusion that I need to ask Joey. And I
love it.
if I'm not able to do that without spending another hour on a spreadsheet, which that was a bridge too far when I can just send these to Joey. How does a consumer have a chance in this situation?
Good question.
They don't. Like, they're staring at things that I go through 60 loan estimates a month just from myself, right? From myself and my team. That's not including all the loan estimates I get from buyers that are shopping, like, hey, blah, 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 this is what I'm being offered. And I think the big thing, and I'm just going to be very blunt, the guy who sent that loan estimate, the one estimate versus the rocket estimate, is a friend of mine. I know him, like, personally. I know him. I was literally in Spain with him a few months ago. And
I talked to him.
It's like getting a burger from Au Cheval versus getting a burger from McDonald's, right? Like, one, he's literally right in the southwest suburbs. You're going to close. He's a guy who doesn't get loans denied, right? He's very, very good at what he does. I pulled the production on the rocket person, and they have, hey, I'm just going to say, they may have closed up to 10 loans this year so far. Like, it's
what do you
tough.
Mean by
and I hate.
What'd you just say about that? You pulled something?
Yeah, so in this industry, you can pull production. So the originations that have closed, right? I'm literally on the phone with someone right now, which I hate admitting to, but it's a client that went with Navy Fed, and now they just got hit with Tidewater, and I pulled the production, the amount of closed loans they've done, right? And the guy's closed 5 loans in the last 6.5 months. Wow. And one of them was VA. And he works at Navy Fed. So I know that this is going to get screwed up. So I'm going to reach out to the buyers and ask them if they want me to save it. If they don't, then, it is what it is.
And to be clear, Navy Fed is Navy Federal Credit Union. Tidewater is the process that you initiate when you get an appraisal that comes in low.
That's before the appraisal comes in low.
Oh.
Before it comes in low.
Tell me more.
So you have the chance to submit comps to support the value based on how you were pricing the home, right? If the appraisal then comes in low, then you can go into the reconsideration of value process, which cuts the appraiser out and goes direct to the VA, which is why there is such a high success rate on VA appeals.
Booyah!
Joey.
And this is... Oh, go ahead.
Yes.
In this market where there's a lot of multiple offers due to lack of inventory, how can we help educate the sellers, the real estate brokers that may at first glance see a VA loan from somebody who has served our country? Thank you for doing that, by the way, from a Army brat born in Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh, I lived there. It was awful. I was artillery Marine. That's where all artillery goes.
God
Poor
bless.
Lawton.
That's where I was born. How do we educate folks to say, listen, these VA loans, because in my experience, those VA loans, they close, right? You guys have the process. The good lenders have the process. But I would say in multiple offer situations, sellers, listing brokers may shy away from that deal because of it,
Joe,
which is awful.
You and I ganged up on a broker in the comment section of my TikTok who was trying to say, bad things about VA. And we were both like, bruh, you just don't get it. And, sorry to step in. You asked Joey a question. I decided I was going to answer
like
it. But
I love that I made an advocate out of you. I freaking love it.
But it goes back to knowledge is power, and it's the same thing. And we have to use every avenue that we have, including this station, to get the word out and what's right and wrong. I mean, before I started working with Patrick and Joey doing this show, I didn't know anything about this stuff.
And you hated
every
lawyers.
week, and I hated lawyers.
And he still
I
does.
really did. I had an old joke about what's the difference between a lawyer and a catfish. And one of them is a scum-sucking bottom feeder, and the other one's a fish. So I'm sorry. I do really like Patrick a lot. I apologize for that joke. But no, it's knowledge is power. And let me throw it back at you. Your same question. What do you think is the best way to get the word out to real estate brokers? How would you like somebody to keep getting this message out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's education from the lenders, the good lenders like Joey that can explain that process. Tidewater, that's new. I've been doing this for 20 years. That's the first time I've heard that.
That's
Oh my
Is
gosh.
that embarrassing?
It's not.
It's not
because
embarrassing.
No,
You don't know
no.
what you don't know. Same
Right.
here.
Yeah.
Nine
You
months
know?
ago, I was in the same boat. Speaking of boats, what do you call 10,000 lawyers at the
geez.
bottom of the ocean?
A start.
A good start. Why don't charge the lawyers?
Oh, gosh. Are we going really all attorney jokes today? This is a comedy show now.
Hold on, I'm on Google. I'll get some.
Oh, boy.
Dennis, I think you I'm just going to repeat what you just said. If you have someone like Joey involved and he's the one giving the pre-approval and he's going to be on the phone the second that offer hits the listing agent's inbox and he goes, look, you're going to notice that this is a VA loan, and let me tell you why that is a feature rather than a bug. And quite frankly, having it out with people in my comment section and just being, look, we need to educate you. Whoever taught you this stigma against VA loans, let me explain to you why that is actually the exact opposite of how you really ought to be considering VA loans. The more, Joey has completely turned me into an advocate. I sit there and I may sound like I'm blowing smoke, but I'm really not. I think it's excellent. I've said before, when I see a VA loan come in, I go, excellent. And
I'm going to jump in real quick. One of the great things I like about Joey and Dennis, I'm actually going to put you on the spot on this one too. About Joey, Patrick, myself, is everybody's going to volunteer their time. If you got questions and stuff like that, and you want to ask somebody, just send a note off to the show at thehomebuyer'shour.com, and it's THE. Don't listen to my Chicago accent.
Show it, thehomebuyer'shour.com.
Yeah, DA there. But
Although we should take that other one too.
we really should, now that you mentioned it.
Good point.
Patrick, how do they get hold of you if they have questions about any of this stuff?
Show at thehomebuyer'shour.com. That's THE.com.
You like that, huh?
thehomebuyer'shour.com.
Oh, gosh, don't do that.
Slide into my DMs. On Instagram, I'm Loftus_law, LOF like Frank, T like Tom, US like Sam. On TikTok, I don't have that ugly underscore. It's just at Loftus Law.
I love it. And Joey, how do they get hold of you?
Oh, well, you can find me at thevaloannerd.com. Hit me up on social media is at the VA Loan Nerd. Literally all of the social media, including that Twitter 2.0 threads. 630-235-2405. You can email me at show@thehomebuyer'shour.com as well.
Sounds
That's
good.
what's up.
Might as well just follow suit right with it there. But first, we're going to get to Dennis. Dennis, how do they get hold of you if they have questions?
It would be much sexier if Joey gave my
Oh, my
email
God.
and
Does
my
he not
text.
have the best voice in the world or what?
He's good.
I know.
He's
Mine
good.
is DHUYCK@kw.com and 312-420-1593.
Say that number one more time, please.
312-420-1593.
And my name is Charlie Bellefontaine. We own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our phone number is 312-544-9180. That's 312-544-9180. We also own Home Inspection University, and that's HIUIL.com, Home Inspection University of Illinois, and where we do training for home inspectors. We offer a lot of our classes for real estate agents for free. One of the biggest things about real estate agents is I'm a believer that you guys should know all the other vendors. All right, you want to be successful in this business, you should know what to expect from a quality attorney, a quality home inspector, quality mortgage broker, even an appraiser as well. And we were kind of chatting on that before I asked us to give out our information. And part of what we do is educating, right? When we had breakfast earlier this morning, you made mention about helping somebody with some of the biggest purchase of their lives, right? And as a fireman and a paramedic for many years, I did that for 37 years. I did some really cool things in my life. I delivered 5 babies. Not many people can go ahead and say that. That's totally cool, right? None of them are my own, by the way, but that's beside the point. The damn doctors wouldn't let me do it.
He had them tested, you know.
I did pull them out. I pulled 2 people that were alive out of burning buildings. All that stuff was cool. But over 37 years, I could count things on 2 hands, on 10 fingers. Yet every time I do a home inspection for our clients here, and when we finish, they look you right in the eye and they say thank you. They shake your hand with the right hand, they hand you a big fat check with the left hand. It's extremely rewarding, all right? I heard that in you. I heard that passion in you a little bit. Can you expound on that? How do you deliver, for that client that's going through such an emotional point? How do you make it easy for them? And I know that's your tagline.
Right. Nope. My tagline is making all things real estate enjoyable, which is tough, right, Patrick?
It is. It's a high standard to hold yourself to, for sure.
But the reality is, I feel very blessed that I get up every day and I'm really just helping people through the process. I'm not selling somebody a home. I've never sold anybody a home.
Right here, any other real estate agent that's listening, I hope you're getting this message. Real estate brokers do not sell houses. You sell yourself. You sell relationships. I'm sorry, I'm jumping on a soapbox here.
Yep. Nope. I appreciate it. The one value I bring to the table is when folks are buying a home is I'm thinking exit strategy. I'm trying to protect their asset, and I'm building relationships. So when it's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, or let's say 6 months because nobody has a crystal ball, and they say we need to get out of this house, that I was standing there when we made the decision to purchase it, and we're going to be able to get you out of there. So
explain more on that exit strategy. What do you mean by that?
I let folks know I can't tell you what neighborhood you should move into.
Well, that's RESPA laws, isn't it?
Fair housing.
That
fair
too.
housing.
Fair housing, yeah.
But they're choosing different neighborhoods of interest, right? They have to decide where they want to live.
Yeah. But you can give them information and stats about the neighborhoods, right?
Of course.
Okay, good.
Of course. So I provide them with all of that data. They make their own decisions on what they can call home, and I'm standing by their side really as the devil's advocate to make sure when it's time to leave, they're not going to be put in a bad financial situation because they moved into this house.
And I think that's where I was going with all this. It's all about education, all right? People don't know what they don't know. I don't know what I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And so now you got to kind of be that overwatcher and make sure that kind of what Patrick and Joey were talking about earlier, you get 2 different mortgages and one seems really good, but yet it's actually, a little bit of a bait and switch almost.
Yep.
How do you keep an eye out for all that stuff? How do you educate yourself to know those things that you could share with your client?
Well, I appreciate Patrick's effort, Patrick's relationship with Joey, trying to learn about the business. But what I do is I put a team together. And I got to thank you this morning. A tenant of mine in a multi-unit that I own just went under contract, and she thanked me for the team in place, which means she gets it, right?
Yeah.
I never heard of Tidewater before 3 minutes ago, and I know that, but it's the most important value that I bring to the table is have experts in each line of business. So we need a real estate attorney that does closings, that is a real estate attorney, and it's critical to have experts in each kind of chain of command on how this business works. So that lender is so important, and that inspector is so important, because the first person that gets a call when there's a problem after somebody moves in is going to be me. And that'll be the first and last call I get after spending a lot of my time and effort trying to find them the best home. So partnering with guys like you is critical to my career.
You know, it's funny, and even in my own career, and I've been doing this home inspection business for 30 years now, you still don't know what you don't know, right? So I mentioned to you earlier, and your jaw dropped a little bit, that we do these follow-ups with our clients, right? And you're like, oh my God, that's so good. And then once I started doing those, I never realized how valuable that was. So any other home inspector, if you're listening out there, set up a follow-up interview with your clients over Zoom, where you go over the report with them. Because what I've learned is what my inspectors say and what my client hears are two different things sometimes.
Big time.
100%.
And if you don't hear what they say, you don't know what they think. And then we have to go ahead and correct that. And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you mentioned listening and your skill of listening. But to the real estate brokers listening out there, I was amazed that Charlie mentioned that he does a Zoom call with all of his clients after an inspection. That, to me, that is an amazing value add. And I can't tell you how many times I'm looking at page 132 of an inspection report, and they're asking me about
I love those short
elbow
ones.
on a pipe in the laundry room, and what do I think about it?
And
So,
that's my point, you know.
Right.
And sometimes we're going to document things, and we put them in the report, because I'm always afraid of when things go bad, it's the wild, wild west. But instead of using guns, we end up using fingers. And those fingers come out so fast, and they're pointing at everybody who's at fault.
Right.
And I just don't want them pointing at me. And the better that I have a client that understands everything, then the better decisions they get to make. That's my thought process. And I never realized what a loss of communication there is from going through the house, doing your inspection, writing a report, and then just leaving. You know, what I say, what I write, what they hear are two different things.
that's right.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that it's going to be that way regardless, because what you're talking about there is the focus is in multiple places. So as the inspector, you're looking at something, you're trying to observe it so that you can document it and later produce a report. But at the same time, you're fielding questions from the client, you're getting distracted by certain things, and you may be talking about one thing and thinking about another. And of course, when your focus is divided like that, the communication is gonna suffer. And so, after this may be.
But doesn't it happen with you too? I mean, going over the contract with people?
Well, I don't usually go over the contract with people. It's a form
Interesting.
contract.
Okay.
What we're primarily focused on. If I don't have specific questions that came to mind, like for example, I might get to the financing paragraph and I may have questions just based on what I'm looking at. I go, for example, this looks like it might be an FHA 203K, in which case, I need to find that out from the client before we, dive into the attorney review stuff so that I can have things accurate. I always want to have my letter be as bespoke to the contract as possible. Obviously, as lawyers use forms, it's one of the most effective tools that we have, but you can't just simply send out a form without crafting it and making sure that it matches the contract. So if I do need to get that detailed and I have questions, I'll be asking a question about the contract. But we're typically spending the vast majority of our time going through that inspection report. If I'm looking at the report and asking a question and then trying to listen, that may produce a divided attention situation. But I don't necessarily think it's quite the same as when you are there, boots on the ground, doing the inspection itself, and then where you go back through, and now you and the client are on Zoom, both focused on the report. Now the focus is no longer divided in that way. You're both looking at the report, discussing the same thing. I think that conversation is likely to be more productive than simply having the one that is while you're trying to do the work itself.
And that makes sense. I mean, understanding the ramifications of the issues is the whole reason why I started doing it. Now, that's not true. That's kind of a little bit of a lie, I'm going to confess. I really wanted to know what my guys were doing, all right? It's so true. I wanted to be in the thing. I'm not in the field doing inspections anymore, but I still want to be part of it, and I wanted to hear what they're saying, and how do I do that without watching over them? But this way, when the client tells me what's going on, but then I learned from that, and now I could see some misunderstandings, and I can go ahead and clarify that. I could, everything boils down to how much and who pays. I can come up with the prices, but I want to get to the who pays part, Dennis, and I need a little bit of your help here. All right?
I can't. I'm sorry. I can't help thinking about the movie Horrible Bosses, and which I think you might be the one.
Oh, gosh.
Is it? Oh, who's the guy from Always Sunny? His horrible boss was the guy with like the Ferrari and the big time coke habit. Anyways, never mind.
I do not have a coke habit.
Charlie Day.
Yeah, Charlie Day. Nice. Day. I do not have that.
You're definitely not Jennifer Aniston. So.
No, that's for sure too. And I definitely don't hit on my home inspectors either. So, well, this is going way downhill. But I want to,
as usual,
I want to talk about the word leverage. All right. And maybe the three of you guys could help educate me on this one. And, because when I get a client, they're like, well, can't I get the sellers to fix that? And I'm like, well, by principle, yeah, I guess. But in all reality, the answer is no. So if you don't mind, Dennis, please, sure. What is all this leverage? When does it go up? When does it go down?
Sure. I guess in a normalized market, the objective...
And we're not normalized now, are we?
No, we're certainly not.
When are we ever?
Good point. But in a normalized market, you try to look at an inspection report objectively. And the way I explain it to both buyers and sellers is, when somebody's purchasing a home, there are some things that they're going to have to inherit.
No home is perfect.
No home is perfect. There are some discoveries that an inspector will make that probably the sellers weren't even aware of that seems justified and fair for them to fix. And then there's that gray area that becomes kind of a negotiating point back and forth that we kind of fight through. So to me, that's how I think inspections and attorney reviews should go in that regard. In this market, with the lack of inventory and the mad demand, particularly out in northern and even western suburbs, it's kind of like buyer beware if you want to win the house.
Yeah, less is more probably. I mean, look, you can talk about these things with broad strokes and say, well, generally speaking, but the way I typically see it is that each transaction has its own character, and every person is different. True. Every seller is different. And even the certain characteristics of the transaction itself. For example, is it a fix and flip? In which case, I'm probably asking for just about everything that got discovered in the inspection, because they're probably, number one, they probably were expecting a bunch of stuff. I mean, sometimes you see some of the stuff and you're like, you had the house on the market and you didn't have that done. But so, in some ways they're sort of relying on the inspection to tell them what they have left, because they might have done a lot more. It's going to depend on how thorough the inspection is, in which case, oh my gosh. So, that's one thing that will make a difference. But you also sometimes, even if it's just, heavily tilted toward the seller's market, you'll see some people who are like, hey, I have an extraordinary amount of pride in my home, and I'm going to do as much as humanly possible without completely sabotaging myself to make this buyer feel welcome in their new home, because I want them to feel the same way about my home as they do. And that it won't matter what the market's doing to that particular home seller. And likewise, you'll have, even in the best buyer's market, you'll have a home seller who just goes, look, I ain't doing squat.
Right.
And in which case, then your buyer's going to feel some kind of way about it, because they're going to go, wait, I thought I had the market here. And you go, well, you do, except you're no longer in the market. You are in this transaction. And this transaction has a seller who's extraordinarily stubborn. And if you really want this house, you're going to have to live with the fact that you're not going to be sitting there with your buddies having beers telling them how you bent the seller over a barrel. You're going to say, well, I feel like I got had, but look how awesome my house is. You know, and that's the end goal is to buy a house.
And that's what they want.
If it makes sense
Right.
from a dollars and cents perspective, don't try. I'm saying don't get emotional about it. You know, don't get that's foolish advice because it's I'm asking the impossible. But try to see your way clear from the perspective of I've got to really get the best deal, and think about what it's going to feel like in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, you and your family in this home, in that school district. Your kids are near their friends. What is going to matter more? That you really nailed that seller, or that the next 3, 5, 10 years of your life are set up for wins left and right?
That's right.
You know, and I want to ask a question, something that happened to me. Joey, do you see home inspection reports during the loan process at all?
Not usually. The only time that I'm the only time I really want to see.
He's going to get whiplash. His head is shaking.
You're so much asking for trouble to do
I just
that.
want to clear that out. That's all. So I have a situation. I'm doing a follow-up interview with my client. They're showing me the water line coming into the house, the service entrance line, and it's a copper line that's coming in. It's only a 3/4 inch copper line, and it's a hard temper line. And I'm only going to say this for people that don't know what hard temper is. Hard temper is typically those straight pipes that you end up buying at Home Depot. They're like 10-foot long sections, and you cut them and you put elbows on them. That's hard temper. They're not designed to be bent. Soft temper are the copper lines that come in a coil, and then you just unroll them, all right? Whenever we pull water lines in from underground, we can't put an unbendable line in the earth. We have to put a bendable line in the earth. And I've seen this happen a few times. So I got the concrete floor in a 1950s, post-World War II bungalow in Chicago. It's got a 2-foot by 2-foot square of the concrete cut out and replaced, and I got a straight hard temper copper line coming out of there. And I'm like, I think this is lead. I got a feeling, and I've seen this happen before, where people will dig down below the basement floor, and they cut that lead line, in there, and then they put an elbow on it, and then they bring a copper line straight up through the concrete, and I've seen a hard temper line. And I know in my mind that you can't do this. It won't work physically. So something has to change underground. And we really shouldn't be having fittings in the earth either. All right, yeah. That's a whole nother story. So when I throw a wrench like that into the system, how do you two fix it? And I'm looking at Patrick and Dennis right now.
Well, reminder alert for the real estate brokers that our goal is not to hit that closing table and get that commission check and be on to the next deal.
Thank you for saying that.
This guy knows
Say
what's
it
up,
again.
Man.
It's worth repeating.
That is why we have you. We are not looking to make this business a transactional business, right?
Too many people think that's the case.
This guy's saying all the right things, man.
Yeah, he's coming back on again.
Don't you make my heart smile.
Right?
I mean, it's an easy one, but that's when it gets a little bit scary. Like, what are the intentions of that guy, driving us around every house that we like, saying, oh, let's get this one. Oh, wait a minute, let's get this one.
Yeah, this is the greatest house in the world. It was built by an electrician. Nothing's going to be wrong,
Oh, my God, I got to
And what does that do to me? You get me a real estate agent that's telling the client how perfect his home is. Now I'm the bad guy because they're not perfect.
Right. You work with the other side. You make a decision. Is this a fixable solution?
Yeah.
Right? And are we all going to work together on making this right and calling this our home? And at that point, you kind of put a timeout on that attorney review. If it's a seller's market and they're like, we'll go on to the next guy, say, give us 24 hours to find out what this is going to mean to us to fix this. And I'd say, maybe 4 out of 5 times, maybe there is an inexpensive solution to something that sounds so horrible as like, the comment you made about the pipe. Maybe there's a fix that you could take on as a buyer after the close, but to know that up front and then make a decision whether or not we need to wait for the next home or not is critical.
Yeah, and in that situation, the seller is also going to be put on notice, not in the sense that, well, now you know, but it's like, now you know. And you need to expect that it's going to come up in the next one and in the next one. To say, well, let's say goodbye to this buyer and hope that the next inspector is less knowledgeable or less thorough, I think is not a great strategy. And
That's a common one.
Well, I don't know. I can't remember having had a client who said that. I mean, unless the buyer was just absolutely unreasonable, they're like, well, the furnace is 20 years old, and if I don't get $5,000, I'm out. Then we're out, right? Especially in a typical situation. If I were to have that situation, I kind of had that situation the other day, but it's like, no, we'll maybe give you a home warranty, which I got opinions about that, but sometimes
me both.
Sometimes that'll be enough to get the deal through. So but yeah, it's if that's the situation, fine. Then we're gonna cut that buyer loose and move on to the next one. But if
one
it's a
last
situation
question, Patrick. What I did was I told my client to go into journalist mode. I love to do this. I love to put the burden on the seller, right? And I said, did you change out this water line? Be a direct question, Yeah. Is it fully copper? Did you pull a permit for this stuff? Can we check these sort of things, or what happened here?
Yeah, submit a FOIA to the city or village.
Most of the time you don't even have to do that. It's all public online, whether or not they have permits. So especially in the city of Chicago, it's actually pretty easy, but you're going to be unpleasantly surprised by how much work was done without permits.
Yeah, careful how much credit you give the building department's website for their accuracy. If you really want to know, submit a FOIA.
Sounds good. We are running a little out of time. We're getting towards the end of our hour. Everything goes by real quick, that's for sure. Joey, we've been kind of ignoring you for a little bit, and you are my favorite mortgage broker in the world. Let me just get that out in the open. Sorry, all the other mortgage people. How do people get hold of you, Joey, if they need to?
Oh, hey, I'm still here. You can find me at thevaloannerd.com. Find me on social media as at thevaloannerd. If you want to call or text me, the number is 630-235-2405. You can also email me at show@thehomebuyer'shour.com.
And I'm going to throw a little bit of a plug out there for Joey as well. He doesn't bring it up too often, but one of the things that I really value about him is these pre-approval or pre-qualification letters, and I always forget what it is. But Joey comes back and he pulls the numbers, he gets the paperwork, he does everything that the underwriters are doing when you're applying for the mortgage, so that you know that it's going to go through. And correct me if I'm wrong, you've never
denials.
No denials. That's still accurate. Fantastic.
Yes, sir.
How do they get hold of you?
I have so many more lawyer jokes, and there's not enough time.
We don't have time.
If you want to hear the rest of my lawyer jokes, find me on Instagram, Loftus_law, or TikTok at LoftusLaw.
And Dennis, please, how do they get hold of you?
I outsource my social media because I am old. But because I have such a goofy last name, you'll find me. But it's DHUYCK@KW.com. My cell number is 312-420-1593. And you could tell the difference between the outsourced Instagram posts and when I'm drinking on Thursday night.
Oh, my God, I love it. All right, we are almost out of time. Special thank you to our producer, Devin Tingle. He's the one who makes everything sound so good. My name is Charlie, and thank you for listening to the Home Buyer's Hour, and I am